Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 10 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, on Saturday, January the 15th, and I'm happy to be here. This is Worldwide Epidemic of Child Abuse and Human Rights Abuses, and I'd just like to do a half-hour show on the whole issue of worldwide human rights abuses, including child abuse, child rights, human rights. That's what I'm into. It's what I study, and that's what I'm busy trying to make a difference in, to make this world a better place for everybody, not just for people in North America. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and, we're basically focusing right now on the United States and Canada as far as stopping and preventing child abuse goes, but I'm also very much interested in the international situation of human rights abuses, and I always have been. It's always bothered me that people have been suffering all around the world. And I've always been conscious of that, even as a young person. So it's not surprising that I would choose to do this and that I would go this route. I've been concerned about people around the world forever. So as far back as I can remember. So that's why I like to do this show because it allows me to focus internationally. And so I get information coming into my inbox all the time from every kind of news source you can think of that's discussing and disclosing and journaling, human rights abuses, right? And I've always been interested in this stuff, so I keep a close eye on what's going on around the world, right? Not as much time as I'd like to, because sadly enough, I don't have the time to be able to spend that I'd like to do this. I'm usually working full time and I'm busy. And not only that, but I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and we're extremely busy. But I do keep an eye on it, and this show, I like doing this show because it actually allows me to spend, a half an hour on here talking about the issues of what's going on around the world, and as well as it sort of forces me to get into the material just so I can present it here on the show. So I hope everybody will sit back and enjoy the show. And really what this is all about is people like you and me around the world, people just exactly like you and me, who are suffering so horrifically while we drink our coffee and eat our pancakes and stuff down our sandwich and enjoy ourselves over here. We have these freedoms because people died for these freedoms. The only reason why we're sitting here eating our breakfast and our lunch or whatever we're doing, and it's sitting in our warm apartments and pretty much relatively free from any kind of human rights abuses, is because people have died for that. So many people have given their lives so that we could be free to sit here and enjoy our space and our peace and our calm. And it's like the rest of the world isn't necessarily involved in this. And it's really important to pay attention to this and do whatever you can to become a voice for people who are suffering. It doesn't matter whether it's North America, United States, Canada, or Mexico, or any other place in the world, right? Just that we all know this is happening and know that men, women, and children are suffering needlessly, really, and dying because their countries haven't secured their human rights, right? And it's just absolutely horrific what's going on out here. Some of the stuff that came into my mailbox, my inbox, really is quite since December, but I haven't had a chance to really kind of get to it. Last week we had a show on here and had a guest on here, so this show got switched over to an interview with J.L. Godfrey, which was just awesome. So, but I'm glad to be able to do this show. So I'm going to be looking at an article that I just popped into the chat room there. And that is from humanrightswatch.org. And it is called Protecting Children Being Forced to Beg. And I'm going to read this article here. This one came into my inbox in December. Haven't had a chance to really talk about it on any of my shows yet. And I saved it because this really is something that people need to know is happening. That these poor kids out here around the world, they're just trying to survive. Even in North America. That's why I volunteer with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, because children here in the United States and Canada are just trying to survive, you know what I mean? But other people around the world are too, and other children around the world are as well. But there's no one really looking out for them like there are over here. We have systems in place, programs in place that actually try and make an attempt to save children's lives over here in North America, whereas in the rest of the world, their resources are very limited, and so there's so many times that so many children just don't get any help, period. And I'm glad that there's these groups out here like Human Rights Watch actually doing something to actually step in and make some noise for these people, right? Human Rights Watch, www.hrw.org. This particular article is called Protecting Children Being Forced to Beg. Ending abuses by teachers in Senegal's Quranic schools. That's the name of the actual article. And I'm just going to read through. December 9th, 2010. In response to a Human Rights Watch investigation, Senegalese authorities have begun enforcing a law prohibiting anyone from forcing a child to beg. Since we released our report on widespread abuses taking place at Quranic boys' schools, 10 teachers who forced children to beg have been convicted. So in late 2009, Human Rights Watch researchers documented the system of exploitation in which boys who attend Quranic schools are forced to beg all day, 7 days a week, at Senegal's streets to meet quotas for food and money set by their teachers. And the teachers, known as marabouts, often live in relative affluence because they keep everything the boys, which the boys are known as the talibs, they keep everything the boys receive from begging. Should the boys fail to meet the quotas, they may be severely beaten by the marabouts or marabouts. Malik L., a 13-year-old boy, showed Human Rights Watch the scars from the beatings he had suffered at the hand of his marabout more than a year before. He recounted his experience, which was typical of many other boys we interviewed. When I could not bring the quota, the marabout beat me, quote-unquote, Malik told us. Even if I lacked 1 cent, he beat me. He hit me over and over, generally on the back, but at times he missed and hit my head. This is what this little boy was telling Human Rights Watch, and he's got the scars to prove it. Human Rights Watch conducted almost 300 interviews with current and former Quranic schoolboys, families who sent their children to Quranic schools, marabouts, Islamic scholars, and government and humanitarian officials. And Human Rights Watch released their findings in April at a press conference in Dakar with an Islamic scholar and a local Senegalese NGO. We used the publicity generated by the press conference to reach out to donor governments and urge them to push the Senegalese government to prosecute abusive marabouts and to set and enforce standards for these schools. And the next day, during a press conference with Senegalese President Abdoulaye Wade, then Canadian Governor General Michel Jean echoed our findings, declaring that these abuses amount to a form of modern slavery. They're just forcing these kids to beg, because they're supposed to be begging for their meals, to provide for their shelter while they're going to these Quranic schools. These boys are forced to go out and beg all day and then bring back the money to their teachers, the marabouts, right? And the teachers, if they don't get the money that they think they should get, they beat these children. And it's just absolutely horrific. It's just a form of modern slavery. So her comments ran in major media outlets, including the BBC, CBC, and The Guardian, among others. The U.S. government quickly took interest in the issue, recognizing the abuses we documented as one of the worst forms of child labor. And the U.S. government was also interested in the fact that many Quranic schoolboys are trafficked from Guinea-Bissau, another country highlighted in our report. Having criticized Senegal's policies on human trafficking for years, the United States was a key ally in our efforts to influence the Senegalese government to protect these boys. Armed with our report, U.S. officials cautioned that the United States would cut off all bilateral aid if the Senegalese government did not enforce its own laws against forced begging and take steps to end the trafficking of the boys. Because marabouts hold immense social and political sway in their local communities, the Senegalese government had turned a blind eye to the plight of the estimated 50,000 Quranic schoolboys, the vast majority of whom are under the age of 12, with many as young as 4. But now, as a result of the media attention, it's so important people don't realize that what this does, these people who go out there and get the attention going, get the story going, get these photos out, release these publications and these news, these news articles, it draws public attention, and that's how things get done. And that's why it's so important for people to remember that to be a voice and stand up and speak out against what is wrong. Because we all know that the children should not be made to be slaves, right? We've been fighting to defeat slavery for at least a couple hundred years now, and we're still fighting. And the thing is that people have lost their lives over that. So many people, in every way, trying to stop slavery. And this is exactly what this is. They're just forcing these children to go out and beg for, and then when they don't come back with the amount of money that they're supposed to or that they think that they should, they're beaten, they're not taken care of, they're not looked after. And it's just incredibly wrong. So if we don't stand up and speak out against what is wrong, then we're no better than the people that are doing that. Right? That's the whole issue. There's wrongs and rights in this world, and for every person that's ever stood up for what is right, And for every person who has ever spoken out against what is wrong, you go down in history as a real person who's done something good on this planet. Because just because people are hurting other people does not mean that it's okay. So much of society likes to think that, oh well, it's not my problem. I'm having a good life, so isn't that great? So many people think like that, right? I know that because I've talked to so many people who think like that. It's very, very sad that people are so ignorant, really, because that's what that is. It's ignorance. Because you want to be thanking your lucky stars, and or praying to God, or being, whatever you do, that you are not one of these people out here who are being tortured and maimed and killed and beaten just because of where you're born and the situation you're born into. And that's why I fight against child abuse here in North America, the United States, and Canada, because you want to be very thankful if you're not one of these children who's born into a family where your parents would kill you, rape you, beat you, burn you, treat you so horribly. You want to be very thankful if you grew up in a nice home with nice parents. You want to be very thankful that you have food on your plate, because in so many parts of the world there's nothing for them to eat and they're scratching for a crumb. And the thing is the rest of us are sitting around getting fatter by the day. And I'm speaking about myself too. But at least I know what's going on and I pay attention. So I do have that kind of going for me. But the thing is if we aren't going to speak out against what is wrong, we may as well. We're just as bad as those dictators or these people who would hurt other people and who would take advantage and exploit people and children and women and even men. There's every form of slavery still going on this planet, and if people don't pay attention to it, and don't stand up and say it's incredibly wrong, we need to stop this. That's why I'm so thankful for groups like Human Rights Watch and other groups. There's so many of them, actually, thank God, that are actually going out and saying, what, this is wrong. We got to get the word on this. We got to get the news, and we got to start getting this out into the media. Because if you shut down the media, you can do whatever you want. That's what happened in Afghanistan. Years when the Russians were kicked out of the country and the U.S. left in the 80s. The Taliban took over, shut down the media, burned the schools, and took over the country and enslaved the people. That's exactly what they did. It's just another form of slavery, and that's exactly what they did. And they used religion to say, oh no, this is the way it's going to be. They used religion to take over a people. The Afghan people were never like the Taliban. They were never like anything. See, and they don't even know that. They don't even know that they didn't used to have to walk around, wearing a scarf on their head and all this stuff, because their history was destroyed. So the people that have been born there think that it was that way forever. They have no clue that the women in Afghanistan were able to work. They worked in government. They held jobs. They had access to health care. They had access to schooling. And they were treated like normal, average, decent people until the Taliban destroyed their history and destroyed the media. So that's why the media is very important, and I hope everybody will remember that and pay attention. It's been going on. It's gone on in Asia for years, Southeast Asia. It's been going on in China since day one. If people can squash the media, and they can squash the truth, right? And that's why it's so important for people to realize that, in media and journalism is somewhere in there is a bit of truth, right? And although it may not be, what's truth to one person isn't somebody else's truth. But the thing is it's enough truth to prove what is actually going on in these countries. And it's very, very important for people to stand up and speak out against it. Because this is not, just because we live in North America does not mean that we should be closing a blind eye to what's going on around the world. And as far as helping our own country first, I really believe that we should. We have an obligation to our own citizens, as well as trying to help other people. But it's just like, a few shows back I think I was talking about this, that thank God that the United States and Canada and most of Western Europe and the Western world got involved and took care of Hitler. You know what I mean? Because he was sending millions of people to their deaths, and millions. You know what I mean? And if we don't get involved and stop these kind of things, you know what I mean, then we're no better. We may as well just count ourselves in there with Hitler and say, well, yeah, whatever, you know what I mean? Because that's exactly how you will be counted if you don't stand up and speak out against this stuff. If people do not stand up for what is right and speak out against what is wrong, we are no better than these dictators, than these abusers, than these people who would take away our human rights. Because people have died for these human rights, and we need to make sure that we secure them. It's very important. This is a serious issue, and we can't even begin to say how serious this stuff is. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous that people are still slaves today. There's so many, even in our own countries. We have child sex trafficking going on in the United States and in Canada, and those children are slaves, modern day slaves, sex slaves. Let's get a grip here, people. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous that in the United States and Canada that is not considered a crisis. Why is that not being, broadcast across the whole nation of Canada and the United States, both countries? Crisis, crisis, crisis. Because it is. And there's a bunch of sick people out there who are making a way for these other sick people to have their way with children, these child sex slaves. Right, but people are just so into their pancakes and coffee and toast and, going out for the latest caramel macchiato and versions of coffee. And the society has been, like, brainwashed by thinking that everything is about new cars and new coffee houses. Well, it's not about the new cars and the new coffee houses, I tell you that. And, if we're going to be such a shallow society, then, we deserve what we get. Because, my God, it's absolutely ridiculous what's going on out here. And I feel for every one of these people. These children don't deserve to be treated like this. And, there's more. I have so many more articles. I won't be able to get to them today. But, it's absolutely ridiculous what's happening. They said that because of the result of the media attention and pressure from the U.S. government that the Human Rights Watch helped generate, Senegalese authorities have begun to enforce a law prohibiting anyone from forcing a child to beg. And the law has been on the books since 2005, but was never enforced. And then there would be so many people that would say, well, they need to be able to beg. How are they going to eat? Well, if they can go out there and try to get food, but why are they beating these kids? You know what I mean? Because they're not bringing back enough money or whatever they're supposed to be bringing back. That's just incredibly wrong. Children, around the world are begging you for food and whatnot. And, you feel bad for them, and that's really sad. But that's the only way they can live. But it's these people that would beat them and maim them and torture them and kill them because they're not bringing back what they think they should be bringing back, whether it's their parents or whether it's these marabouts, these teachers, these Quranic teachers. Doesn't matter who it is. It's absolutely ridiculous that people would beat a child because they couldn't bring back enough stuff. That's what Charles Dickens was trying to portray from the 1800s in England, in what was it, post-industrial England, when, he was trying to call attention to the fact that children should not be treated that way. And kids have been treated that way since time began. But does that mean that it's okay? That's what I'm saying. There's so many people in society who like to say, well, it's been happening forever. Why do we have to worry about it? I've heard these comments even from people that I personally know, like family members of mine who are very ignorant and very sick, right? Because my family is so dysfunctional because of the abuse that they suffered and the abuse that they went through, which I talk about on all my other shows if you want to catch that. That my family, there's only a couple members left actually in my family, but the ones that are remaining, their heads are stuffed so far up their behinds that they're warped. Their way of looking at people is so wrong. They could sit there and say that it was no big deal for my dad to rape my mom. They could sit there and say it was no big deal for my dad to punch my mom in the face. They could sit there and say that it was no big deal that my dad would threaten my brother's lives. Threaten my life. They could sit there, my sister and my brother. This is how ignorant people are. I'm just bringing my family up for an example, right? Because, I know firsthand how ignorant people really are. You know what I mean? And there's so many people out there that think, well, it's been happening for life since time began. We're not going to ever be able to stop it. What does it really matter if those women are being raped and killed and maimed and tortured and having their breasts cut off? What does it really matter to me? There's so many people in the world that really don't care. And you know what? Shame on those people who don't care. That's what I have to say. Because you be happy that you're not one of those women being raped and tortured, and having your breasts cut off with a machete. Be very, very happy that you're not one of them women. Be very happy that you're not one of these boys here being beaten because you didn't bring back enough money. They have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go. Be very happy that you're not one of these men in these prisons being tortured and beaten and killed, thrown out into a mass grave. You want to be extremely happy for everything that you have, and then realize that there's people around the world that don't have even the opportunity for life because their lives being taken. Their lives are being completely squashed and taken by other people who would think it's perfectly okay to do that. So if we stand up and we say, oh, well, it's not my problem, it doesn't affect me, we're no better than the people with the machete cutting off that woman's breast. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not going to put ourselves in her place and know what it's like to be gang raped and then have your breasts cut off. See, I watched my mom suffer my whole life. And I tried to help and tried to stop and was beaten for it myself, just for trying to help my mother, right? But the thing is that, we can't sit back and say, oh, it's no big deal, it doesn't affect me, because it's in some other country. Because these are mothers, these are fathers, these are mothers, these are sisters, these are brothers, these are children, these are babies, right? That are having this horrible stuff done to them. And we as a society here in North America, just because we have it all, I guess, we don't have it all. But the whole issue is that we have a whole lot more than a lot of people do. What we do have is a group of people that stood up and said, everyone should have human rights. And there was a group of people here that believed that. And Martin Luther King was one. And there's been so many people, that have stood up and said, no, this is wrong. You know what I mean? And we have to stand up. We have to make some noise. We have to change this. So I thank God for every lawyer out there that goes out and fights, these international lawyers who go out there and fight for these rights for these people. I thank God for every judge that's judging properly and rightly, making good decisions. I thank God for all these people out here who have seats of power, who are doing the right thing, and then we as a society have to come along and back them up. And we have to stand up and speak out against what we see that is wrong, because it's really our obligation. It really is, because you want to be so thankful that you're not one of these people that's just left on the street while everybody walks by. You want to be thankful that you're not somebody who's just had your breast cut off, or you've been beaten so badly that and then people would walk by and say, not my business, while you're laying there in a pool of your own blood, right? That's the whole issue. This is incredibly serious. And so we need to get involved where we can. There's all kinds of great groups to get involved with. Mainly just get the education and realize that, while we're eating our pancakes and drinking our coffee, this stuff is happening around the world, right? And that it is not right. And that just because we sit over here and enjoy this peace and this awesome, life here in the United States and Canada and parts of Western Europe, it's like the rest of the world is not sitting around doing this, and the rest of the world is scratching to live through today. They're just trying to get through today, while we're making plans. You know what I mean? So let's keep these people in mind, and let's not forget about them, right? Because we can't forget that this is happening to these people. It's not like I can run out there and save the world today. It's not like you can run out there and save the world today. But as long as we know what's going on, support the media, support the people who are bringing out the news, do whatever you can to spread the news, speak out against what you see wrong in your own country. For God's sakes, please do that. You see something going on in your own home that's not right, you got to fix it. You see someone being abused, you've got to get that person some help. And that's North America, right? But I'm talking the rest of the world, there's not much we can do, but we do need to support groups who are doing some good work, right? So whatever way we can. It's harsh because nobody's got that kind of money. But the thing is some people do, and lots of people are helping a lot of people, so that's awesome. But I would say just get the education and help out groups who are doing some good work. I volunteer for the Canadian International Learning Foundation, the CILF, out of Ottawa, Canada. That's Ryan Aldred and a whole bunch of awesome volunteers that work with that not-for-profit organization, the Canadian International Learning Foundation. If you want any information, please get a hold of me. I volunteer with them as well. And they have schools in Afghanistan, in Kandahar, as well as Uganda. And they promote education for children, for girls, for women. And it's working, And these guys, it's a little grassroots organization that is so big that it got the attention, of the Canadian government. It got the attention of really the world. The Canadian International Learning Foundation. So please do what you can to support these groups like them who are making a difference and making things happen. And so, it's awesome to see that there is some good stuff going on out there, right? And so support that stuff, whenever you can. Do whatever you can to support that stuff. If you guys need any information, get a hold of me. I also volunteer for the Canadian Women for Women Afghanistan. I volunteer for the CHF. That's the Canadian Hunger Foundation, and all kinds of stuff. Get a hold of me if you need information. And there's great groups doing awesome stuff. And you can get involved. You know, every little thing that somebody does makes a difference. People think, oh, it's just a little thing, and what could I do? You know, how could I make a difference? Right? It's just these little things that do make a difference. And when you think about all these little things being done, they add up to one big, huge thing, which helps a lot of people around the world, mothers and children and fathers who are suffering. You know what I mean? And so, you know, get involved where you can, but mainly support the media who brings out this stuff, like Human Rights Watch. I mean, there's so many of them. You know, there's Amnesty International, there's World Vision, there's just so many. The Advocates for Human Rights. I mean, if y'all need any information to the links and resources that I have, please get a hold of me. But I mean, this is just par for the course. These poor kids certainly didn't deserve that. So they said that now with the newly stringent enforcement of the law, Malik L. and others like him, these boys that are forced to beg on the streets, right, may no longer be forced to beg. As we maintain pressure on the Sinhalese government to continue to bring abusive marabouts to justice, we are also pushing it to publish standards on who can open and run Quranic schools, which are currently completely unregulated. Right, and we are leading a coalition of Sinhalese and international NGOs going forward to ensure that students will no longer be exploited by abusive teachers. So that's the thing. We know that these kids in these other countries do beg for food. They beg for everything they've got, right, because they don't have anything. They don't even know where their next meal's coming from. So, you know, it's pretty harsh. But the thing is they shouldn't be beaten because they're not bringing back enough food or enough money or whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous that these marabouts, these teachers, these Quranic teachers would beat these children because they didn't come back with enough money. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely ridiculous. These kids are like between the ages of 4 and 12 years old, these boys. And no boy should be treated ever like that. I don't care whether it's North America. I don't care whether it's Africa. I don't care what country it is. See what I mean? Like, we have to be a voice for all children all around the world. You know, and it's just so important that everybody gets involved and do what you can, right? So we only have about 4 minutes left. I have a lot of different information here. Human Rights Watch, www.hrw.org. You can get all kinds of great information on that website. Please do check it out. There was like all kinds of really horrible things that are going on around the world right now because of different elections that have been happening and different things that have been going on around the world in China, in Kyrgyzstan, in Uzbekistan, and different places like that. And the IRINnews.org, that's another great website for this kind of information to get the real word on what's happening out there for, you know, around the world. That's IRIN, Humanitarian News and Analysis, a service of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. I get a whole lot of information off them guys, and that website, you can get information from every part of the world. You know, Africa, Asia, Middle East, Americas, like everywhere. And they cover it all, right? So, you know, they have some great information on there. And also, there's another organization that let me just bring up this link here. This is another one that has great information, AlertNet, and that's Thomson Reuters. AlertNet is the world's humanitarian news site, and they have great information on here as well. So these are awesome websites for people who want to know what's happening and get the truth on some of this stuff that's happening around the world. You can check it all out at these different places. So please do, you know, at least become educated that this is going on, so that these people, so that their lives are not forgotten. You know what I mean? Like, this is absolutely horrific. I know if this was happening to you, I would be out here speaking out against it. You know what I mean? If somebody was abusing you and I found out about it, I would be out here speaking out against it. You know what I'm saying? So this is we are a world, we are one world, we are one people, and we really need to stand up for protection for all men, women, and children, right? We are all one here on this earth as we live and breathe, right? And so let's do whatever we can to help our brothers and sisters, man. This is really so important. I would want somebody to do this for me if I was in this situation and I was living in a country that was so completely backward and inundated with abusive situations going on, and there was no human rights, and there was no right to life even. I would want somebody to be speaking out for me and to remember what happened to me, right? So please, let's all get involved and do what we can, right? Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'll be back on tomorrow. You can check my show page. And as well, next week, I'll be back on Monday morning, One Child Abuse Survivor to another 6 o'clock in the morning. So have a great weekend. Be careful. Be safe in everything that you do. And, enjoy our freedoms, man. We've got the freedoms. Let's enjoy them and let's stand up for them. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.